Greetings, my fellow truth seeker. Are you ready to step onto your path and discover the hidden truth behind your reality? Are you prepared to expand your mind and go beyond the matrix? Good. Join me and welcome to your fate.
Welcome, everyone, to the next episode of Fate. How's everybody doing out there? On today's show, I have past life regressionist, hypnotherapist, life coach, Peter McLaughlin. Peter, welcome to your Fate, my friend. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, and I'm happy to be here with you.
I am happy to have you as well. Thank you for joining the show. I absolutely love the topic of hypnosis, past life regressions. I think it's fascinating. So, why don't you start with a little bit about your background, how you became a past life regressionist, hypnotherapist? Do tell.
Okay, the most dramatic thing that happened that changed the course of my life was 23 years ago when I was volunteering to be a firefighter and EMT in my town in Connecticut. I did an extensive physical. On the first day of the physical, the doctor said, "You're in great shape for your age," which was 41. "Come back and give blood." I came back, I gave blood, alarm bells went off. And when I got in touch with a frantic sounding person at the doctor's office, they said, "We think that you have Lyme disease and a rare form of leukemia." And this started an odyssey for me that started as initially, obviously, to how do I extend my life? Because when I asked how long I had to live, they said maybe 10 years. And I had 3 really little children at the time, and the thought of leaving them was just so horrible. And the hematologist oncologist said, "We don't know what causes this, we don't know how to cure it." And that ultimately led me to the power the mind has over the body. So that's the short version.
All right, well, let me ask you this. Did you have a spiritual awakening, or was it more you were pulled in the direction of hypnotherapy for healing purposes only? Like, where are you at in your spiritual world? I'm wondering.
Well, it started as healing. That's what it started as. And then actually in the process of the training, I had several experiences that I wasn't expecting that were decidedly spiritual in nature. So I on one night when I was doing some work with 3 other students, we were in a circle. One of the guys, there were 4 of us, and one of the guys was playing a crystal bowl, and we were all hypnotherapy students, and so we were all going into trance and we were passing energy around the circle, and I met the Virgin Mary.
Oh, wow.
And
Oh.
I didn't seek her out, but she came as clear as day. And I remember in my mind saying to her, "Thank you for loving me." And she said, "I've always loved you." And I had, tears coming down my face. And then in that same session, if you will, I had 2 spontaneous past life regressions that were extraordinarily vivid and powerful. And this was just one of the experiences that I had while I was there. Yeah, it was one of the more remarkable ones, but I had other really powerful, moving experiences while I was in Santa Fe, New Mexico for 2.5 months going through this program.
Can you tell me a little bit about who were you in your past lives? Like, what did
Sure.
you learn about who you were?
Sure. I mean, these spontaneous past life regressions were like a couple of snapshots, although they were more like it was more like a video. And I was first person. I was in my previous body. A lot of times when you do past life regression, people might witness it from third person, like they're seeing it from the outside, or they may go back and forth between third and first. And because it was spontaneous, it wasn't like, "Oh, I want to work on this particular aspect of me." It was almost just, you know what it was, Christy? It was almost like my guides, God, the divine, was opening my inner eyes and saying, "You are much bigger than you think you are. You've had many other lifetimes. You are connected to us. We are connected to you. It's all happening on the inside." And because the first spontaneous past life regression was, I was standing at night. I looked down at my arm, my left arm, and I could see that my arm was thinner than it is now and that it was much darker. The skin was much darker. And I was wearing a white robe. And I just remember how almost impossibly white and how fine the weave was of this white robe. And I looked ahead and I could see these torches burning. And then beyond the torches, I could see one of the pyramids. And then the scene changed, and I was inside one of the pyramids, and I was walking along a ramp inside one of the pyramids. And I can't remember whether I was ascending or descending, but there were torches in there as well. And I got the sense that I was some kind of a priest. And then that scene changed, and I went to Europe, it seemed like, and I was looking out a stained glass window at night, and out I was looking at a moor, and I looked down, and there were like, I don't know, 4 or 5 monks, and I was a child. I was like 12. They were holding me up so I could look through the stained glass window. And then in the next scene, I was in a horse-drawn carriage, and I remember seeing and feeling the leather and the cracks in the leather of the seat that I was sitting on, as this carriage was taking me through the moor, and then that moved to something else. Like, it was just these pop,
Snippets.
pop, pop, pop.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, it just felt like I was being shown that everything isn't as what I think it is. It isn't as small as I think it is. It's much, much bigger.
Yes. Yes. So let's talk a little bit about your healing. How you're here, you're talking to me.
Yep.
Are you a healthy, healed human at this point? And if so, did you get there through hypnosis?
I would say so. Yeah. I
Yeah.
feel healthier now than I did 23 years ago.
Wow.
I'm 64, and I feel like I've got energy. I feel much happier than I used to feel. I used to have an anger problem, and I don't anymore. That's gone. And it has been gone for 20 years. That's when I did my training, was 20 years ago. And yep.
Go ahead. Well, I was going to ask, how did, I've gone through my whole healing journey and tried many, many methods before, some worked, some didn't. Did you experience something similar to that, where you tried many ways to try and heal yourself, and somehow, how did you even come upon hypnosis that it could potentially heal you? Did you voraciously seek your health, or how did that even occur?
Yeah. So as soon as the hematologist oncologist said, we don't know what causes this and we don't know how to cure it, I started doing my own research. And I went back to see her for a second time, which in hindsight, I think was a mistake. Because as soon as they tell you we don't know how to cure this, it's like, well, why would I come back here? But I did. And I remember 2 things about that visit. One was, I remember I was following her to her office down a hallway. And she looked over her shoulder at me in this kind of this look, this curious look. And then I came into the office, and she looked at me again, and she said, "What's the matter?" And I said, "I'm really worried." And she's like, "Oh, don't be worried." And then just kind of dismissed how I was feeling. And I realized in that moment that this is not going to be for me. And I remember saying to her, based on my research, I remember saying, "Do you know how many people are diagnosed with this kind of leukemia every year in the United States?" And I could tell she didn't know. She just sat there looking at me, and I said, I can't remember if this number is exactly right, and this is 23 years old, but it was like a little over 3,000.
Oh, wow.
300 million people, 3,000.
Very small. Yeah.
And then I said, "Do you know how many of those 3,000 some odd people are under the age of 50? Because I was 41 at the time. And this was primarily a disease that older people were dying. And she didn't know that either. And then I said, "How many of those people do you suppose were simultaneously diagnosed with Lyme disease?" And it was like she just lost it. And I just thought, she cannot help me. This is not going to be the right person. And that's what started this odyssey for me. I did a Panchakarma weekend, which is Ayurvedic medicine. And there were only about 7 or 8 students in this weekend intensive with a man who was trained as an MD and also trained as an Ayurvedic doctor. And I learned a lot from him. There was meditation. There was a 2-person massage with an oil drip going on the center of my forehead, and I could see things when this was happening. And there was a very strict diet, and there was tea that we were drinking that was designed for our dosha, and there was yoga, and there were enemas that were again designed for your dosha. And I felt like my mind was opening with things like that. And I did Tai Chi, or actually Qigong weekend, same thing. I was seeing things in this intensive thing. So there were a number of steps on this journey. It wasn't just one step, it was a number of steps. There was a moment in time at which this concept of being a hypnotherapist was crystallized. My wife and I were streaming that movie, The Secret. It was the first movie I think we'd ever been able to stream on television. This was 2003. And they were talking about the power of your mind and about how we create our reality. And this was aligning with everything I'd been learning. And I had this, it seemed like it wasn't, but it seemed like this chance encounter with a person who walked into a store I owned to ship a package to the Hypnotherapy Academy of America in Santa Fe, New Mexico. This was in Connecticut. And I had this hour-long conversation with her, and her sister had been one of the founders of this place. And at that moment, everything came together. And I looked at my wife and I said, I need to be trained as a hypnotist. And she looked at me and she said, yes, you do. And I called up the school, and it turns out that it was started, that the other person who founded it was a former paramedic. And it was aimed toward the medical applications of hypnotherapy. And I was a firefighter EMT, and I was heavily identifying with that. And I thought, this has to be the right place. And they said, we have one spot left. This was like a Thursday. They're starting next week on a Monday. If you want it, come on. And so I did. I got on a plane and I went out there. But the other part of the journey was working with a naturopath who became my friend and mentor. And naturopaths believe that if you're sick, it means that you have toxins in your body, environmental toxins, for example, and or you don't have the necessary nutrients and building blocks that you need. And that really helped to inform me, but I extended it or expanded it to the mind. In other words, we have emotional toxins that we're holding in our mind that then become lodged in our body and affects our health to probably a greater degree even than environmental toxins. And so a huge part of my healing journey was in flushing out or healing these emotional toxins that I had picked up, I had accumulated throughout my lifetime, and probably through past lives too. I know I had, because I actually did specific past lives that cleared that out. So that, I would say, was probably the most powerful part of the healing path that I was on. The other part was working with the naturopath. And I remember doing these saunas because it was determined that I was poisoned with heavy metals and getting the heavy metals out of me. And this is why I think that at a certain point on this path, I realized I actually feel better now than before I was diagnosed, before anyone knew anything was amiss.
I have a very similar experience. I mean, my own healing journey has been over the last decade, and I went through the same thing. And it starts with detoxifying your body, cleaning up your diet. I did tons of ozone therapy.
Mhm.
I did tons of infrared saunas, high dose vitamin C. I did kinesiology. And I look younger now than I do a decade ago. If I were to pull up a picture of myself in 2016 or something, I look older. My face looks inflamed.
Yeah.
I'm full. In fact, I can remember going to a doctor. I was going to doctors all over this country trying to seek my cure.
Wow.
And one of the doctors that I went to was in Ohio, and I flew out there. And this doctor he was Russian, and he was a intuitive, medium, powerful, mystic, but medical doctor.
Yeah.
And the first thing that he said to me when he looked me in the eyes, he grabbed me by my chin and he said, "You're filled with toxins." And I was. And I think that is really the first step in getting on your path. Is once you start cleaning out your body of toxins, you can also start thinking more clearly.
Yep.
You have more energy. you get a lot of clarity, and then you can start addressing the emotional healing journey that you need to get on. And the more I talk to people like you, mediums, all types of different modalities of healing that you have out there, it seems to be a through line that illness really is much more mental, emotional than it is physical. And then until you can get to the root of what is your cause, which 9 times out of 10 is inner child healing, trauma. We all experience so much pain and emotional trauma that we never addressed from childhood, from past lives.
Hmm.
The fact that we carry with us in our soul journey remnants of who we were in previous lives, and it can come up and crop up as disease if we don't heal it.
Yeah.
And I feel like sickness is a call to awaken your spiritual knowledge to get on your path in a lot of ways. And people treat it as something that they just need to fix and get over so they can get back into the rat race.
Yeah.
That's how everybody approaches it. I
Yeah.
got to fix this and I'm going back to work and that's that. Be at the
Hmm.
ball game on Sunday. See you there, like that's it. And it's not. It's your body trying to tell you, look, that you are more, that there's something that lies beneath that symptom, whatever it may be. So let me ask you this. Was it just one hypnotherapy session that you had and you were cured? Or I'm interested in when you got the diagnosis that you were free and clear with your health. Was it over a period of time? Or how did that, let's put a button on this so we can get into the other
Yeah.
parts of your journey.
I'll be clear about the health situation. So from a blood count standpoint, I would still be considered to have leukemia. But my white blood cell count is less than half of what it was when I was diagnosed 23 years ago, when I was told that I might live for 10 years. So the white blood cell count is still above normal, but it's a fraction of what it was.
That's great.
And
That's
and there's no way that I could point to one thing and say it's this one thing that allowed me to be a much healthier version of what I used to be and not follow the trajectory that they were telling me was going to occur. It was a myriad of things. It was, as you did, cleaning up my diet, getting rid of the toxins that were inside of my physical body, resolving the toxins that were in my mind and lodged in my body, all of these things. And to some degree, I feel like this is an ongoing process because we live in a toxic soup of a society. The water, the air, the food,
we
the
can't
media,
escape it.
you know,
Yeah.
and we all have an ability to process the toxins, but only if we're pretty healthy, pretty robust, and we're minimizing the toxins that are coming in.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm always kind of fascinated by this whole thing, whether it's EMFs or it's
Yeah.
the grounding, or especially now for me is the power of light,
Yes.
what sunlight and maybe even red light does for
Mm.
our physical well-being, our mental well-being. And I've been
Yes.
talking about how, there's something called SAD. Everybody's heard of this. Seasonal affective disorder affects people that live in the northern part of the northern hemisphere. Well, if there's something called SAD, how come we don't have a word for what it means if you live in the sun? If you have adequate exposure to the sun, why is there no phrase for that?
Yeah. I It is a travesty. Number one, I'm just going to say this, like I don't look at Western medicine anymore to heal myself. I have learned
Hmm.
things like near infrared mats. There's so many different modalities out there that you can heal your body that Western medicine don't acknowledge. And I'm not interested in taking a pill to mask a symptom that never heals me. And I don't know what else Western medicine is offering at this time other than some sort of pill that is going to give you other side effects and never heal the root cause of what you're experiencing. So I've kind of unhooked from mainstream medicine in a lot of ways and released that. And God bless doctors. I have doctors on the show and they're wonderful people. I just don't think they're trained the way that we should be trained. And I don't think that even they are taught really what the human body is in a lot of way,
Hmm.
which is an energetic light being lives
Hmm.
inside of us. It is all about energy, light, and the sun is more charging us than it is damaging in us. So it is like a battery. We need to be in the sun. It is light. We are light. So it's just, I have just learned so much on my path, and part of that is the best thing that you could do is eat organic, drink clean water, get get sun, meditate, love your body, like mentally process your emotions. That is going to keep you healthier than taking a one a day multivitamin or whatever else that they're
Yeah.
trying to give you to take.
There
It's
was
just
something
crazy.
that occurred to me when you were speaking 5 minutes ago, and that is, I remember I've talked to several chiropractors who've said to me how they can adjust a patient. They can move their bones back into the place that they're supposed to be. But then what they say to me is that their emotions pull them out of alignment again.
That's right.
Their
That's right.
anger, their rage, their resentment, their fear, their stress, their worry, their belief that they're not good enough. And I think it's the same with, and look, nobody should take any advice from me. I'm not under the law qualified to give anybody medical advice. You should seek your MD for that. Having said that, I really believe in alternative kinds of therapies and treatments when it comes to chronic disease. When it
Yes.
comes to trauma, when I was a firefighter EMT, I felt really good about taking people to the hospital who'd been in a car accident, or they'd
Yes.
cut their fingers off with their snowblower, or they'd fallen out of a tree, or they'd been stabbed. That was the right place as far as I was concerned. It was really difficult for me to take them there when it was a chronic disease because I just didn't believe in the people that, gave them this toxic drug that's causing this horrible reaction. I'm taking them back to where they got the toxic drug, and that didn't feel good
Yep.
to me.
Yeah.
So what I was going to say is there's all kinds of fabulous, and you mentioned a lot of them, fabulous alternative therapies for chronic diseases, chronic conditions that do concur with the Hippocratic Oath. First, do no harm. They're not going to harm people. However, like the chiropractor example, if they still have these emotional toxins that are going on from their past, or they still have things in their present life that are causing deep distress, then they're probably going to get pulled back into that disease process. And therefore, it always seemed to me true that people should be firing, myself included, on all cylinders,
Yes.
looking at the physical and also looking at the emotional and looking at the spiritual, because you are, as you said before, you are an eternal being,
That's right. That's
and
right.
I've used this analogy with clients before, that we have these cell phones that are very expensive and they are unbelievably capable what they can do, and they become a useless paperweight, an expensive paperweight, if they're not plugged into their source of power. Ask yourself the question, dear viewer, what is your source of power? And do you plug yourself into it at least as often as you plug your cell phone into its source of power?
Yes. 100%. I wish people understood the power of their own emotions. Emotions are energy, they're powerful. And if your body is filled with toxic, low vibrational emotions, they are going to disrupt your energy flow, get stuck, and that is when they cause symptoms or disease. And that is a lot of how chronic illness works. And I completely agree with you. If you get a broken arm, if you're in a car accident, I'll be the first one in the hospital getting that looked at, addressed. But as far as chronic illness goes and what is giving you daily symptoms, I'm finding that there is always an underlying spiritual reason that those are happening, and that is the source of your healing, and that's the path that you need to get on. It's your body saying, "Hey, there's more to you. You got to investigate this deeper, go within." That's what your body's trying to tell you when that, in my opinion, and
Well,
from what
yeah, I
I've
mean, and this is also, you're quoting ancient wisdom. It's one of the
Mm.
7 hermetic laws of the universe
I
that,
didn't even know I was doing that.
yeah, that every effect has a cause
Yeah. Yeah.
and every cause
Yeah.
has an effect. And we all
Right.
know this. If you take your car into a mechanic because smoke is coming out of the engine and they say, whoa, wow, don't know why that's happening. But tell you what, for $500, I'll install a fan to blow the smoke away. And at least you can see as you drive down the road. You'd laugh at that person and walk out of that mechanic shop as fast as you could.
Yep.
But that's essentially what a lot of people are being told by their doctors. We don't know what causes this. We don't know how to cure it. But here's this thing that's
Hmm.
got a weird name, right? That was made up
And you can take it for the rest of
for the
your
rest of your life.
life.
And
Yeah.
P.S., that has multiple side effects,
Yep.
but we have
So,
other things that we can give you for those.
yeah. Sorry, liver. Sorry, kidneys.
Right. And my point is we would not accept that for our automobiles.
Mm-mm.
And the deeper point, I guess I don't want to get lost in because it's fun to talk about this, but
Yeah.
the deeper point is that if your car has smoke coming out of the engine, or it's pulling to the right, or it's making a strange noise, there's a reason for it. It didn't
Yes.
just happen in a vacuum.
That's
And
right.
even though the human body and the human mind is more complex than a car, it's the same principle. And that ancient wisdom applies, the Hermetic law. Every
Absolutely.
effect has a cause. Every cause has an effect.
Absolutely. Okay, let's get into hypnosis and what you do.
Hmm?
Talk a little bit about your practice. What mainly do your clients come to you to help them with? Hypnosis can be used for so many things. What is your client base really seeking help with?
It's a difficult question to answer because the mind is implicated in everything in a human life. There's nothing that we don't use our minds for. The the things that seem to be recurring would be relationships, people who are struggling with relationships. And this is something that I feel deeply connected to because I over the 20 years I've been doing this work, I believe that there's kind of 3 areas of your life where things can go right and can go wrong. And one of them is your physical and mental health. We talked a little bit about that. It's also the work, your purpose in this life, your finances. And then the third would be relationship. And within relationship, I think for most people, their primary relationship, their life partner, their romantic life is usually the most important of those. And I'm not trying to diminish a relationship with parents or with children or best friends or whatever. That's all very important. But I think for most people, it's that primary relationship. And when that's going well, we're the happiest we could possibly be. When that's not going well, we're kind of the most miserable we could be. So that is a theme that pops up a lot with my clients. And it's always related back, in my opinion, to what did you bring into this relationship? Out of all the fish in the sea, this person you chose. And it's not blame, it's just it's revealing that there are deeper patterns from your own wounds in the past that have created your present situation. Another one would be people who have compulsions and addictions and they feel like they can't stop and it's really hurting them. Another category would be performance. So I've worked with NFL players and NFL coaches. I've worked with Division 1 players to help them with their performance. But this could also be for executives who have a hard time speaking in public and they need to. And with regardless of who I'm working with and on what I'm working, anxiety is another big one. There's always going to be that root cause that we were talking about. Every effect has a cause. And so I'm always interested, like the mechanic, in finding the root cause. I don't want to install the metaphorical fan to blow away the smoke. I want to help them make a permanent change.
Yes.
And
Yes.
past life regression, present life regression, hypnotic suggestion, something called havening, reframing, coaching, all of those things are tools. And just like a carpenter has tools, ultimately the client of the carpenter doesn't care what tools they use to build the deck on the back of their house. They just want to have the experience of having a beautiful deck that they can entertain their family and friends on. So I think of it in the same way. And my job is to help my clients reach the end result that they want, the goal that they want. And we deploy or use the tools that are appropriate for that client in that moment. And sometimes it's that fast. Like I'll be talking to someone. I just did this with a podcast host who was talking about her own life, and she started to get emotional. She said, "I'm getting emotional telling you about this story." And I said, "Look, feel free to say no, but do you want to close your eyes right now?" And she said, "Okay." And we used a regression right there while we were recording this live, just like you and I are recording this live, to heal a younger version of her. Now, I didn't know I was going to do that walking into this situation, and neither did she. And I did the same thing on an airplane with a man who sat down next to me, and he was in the Navy, and we're talking with each other, and he starts telling me, and maybe it's because of how I work with people that they start feeling really comfortable telling me things that they don't tell other people. But he started telling me about
It's your energy. I
probably
guarantee you.
could be, yeah.
It's your energy.
He started
Go
telling me
ahead,
about a
sorry.
friend of his who killed himself, and he was crying sitting next to me in the plane. And I said, "Look, do you want to heal this right now?" Oh, I didn't know I was going to be doing that. But the tools, just like to a carpenter, they know what's in their toolkit, and they know which one to use at the appropriate moment for the situation where they're encountering. So that's how it works with my clients. It's not like, "Oh, here's the firm plan for today, and we're not going to deviate from it." No, it's really like, what are you bringing today? What is top of, I want to say top of mind, but that implies a conscious thought. It's really more about top of emotion.
Yeah.
What emotions are you bringing? And a lot of times people will come in and say, "Oh my God, I had this really weird dream last night." And I know usually what that means. It means that their subconscious mind knows they're going to do this work tomorrow. And here's their opportunity to clean up something from the past. And the dream usually relates to what it is they need to work on that day.
The power of our subconscious minds is completely underestimated, not talked about, and we're ignorant that how easily programmed we really are,
Mm-hmm.
and that there is a whole other, I don't know, I wouldn't call it an entity, but maybe a part of ourselves that is running in the background that controls much of how we think about ourselves, how we think about how we interact in the world. And can you talk a little bit about
Oh,
the
yeah.
power of the subconscious mind and how truly it could be really what's in control of our day to day and our behavior more than anything else? We think we have total, like, I have control, but we really don't. We're really subordinate to what is going on in the subconscious mind. So let's talk about
Okay, so
that.
here's a metaphor for you, and then I'll dig into it. That you, Christy, are riding on top of an elephant. And you, Christy, are the conscious mind. You have an awareness of everything around you, and you know what you want. You want to go 200 yards that way, and then you want to make a right and go over a bridge. And the elephant's just going along, and you're riding the elephant, and everything's great. And then you make the right turn, and you start heading toward the bridge, and the elephant sees the water, and is like, puts on the brakes. "I'm not going over the bridge." And you want to go over the bridge. You're like, "How come I can't go over this bridge?" And you get off the elephant, and you pull on the rope that's around its neck, and you can't move it. You're struggling, struggling, struggling. That elephant is your subconscious mind. As you said, it's running virtually everything about your life, and so much of it is good. If you didn't have a subconscious mind and unconscious patterns, we call it unconscious competence when you learn how to do something, you couldn't even walk across a room without falling down multiple times. You'd be like a toddler. It's like, how do I do this again? How do I walk across a room? Let me pull out my notes and read it. Oh, first make your... It would be impossible.
Yeah.
Shake someone's hand, you'd be fumbling all over the place. You die in your sleep because your subconscious is regulating everything about your body, including your breathing, including your heartbeat, including your temperature, your immune system, your digestive system, your endocrine system, your reproductive system. It's handling all of this without you having to think about it. And this is one of the reasons why your conscious mind can process 16 bits of data per second, and your subconscious mind can process 1 million bits of data per second. 1 million.
That's
It's
incredible.
not even close. And when people have problems in their life, it's because they basically have an internal conflict. The conscious mind, Christy riding on top of the elephant, wants to go over the bridge, and the elephant doesn't want to go over the bridge. And now they have this internal battle. And this work is about aligning the subconscious with the conscious desires. So if you're afraid to speak in public, it's because it's like the elephant doesn't want to walk over the bridge. It perceives it as dangerous, even though conscious mind says it's not dangerous. You can walk right over the bridge, not a problem. People do it all the time. People speak in public all the time, but the subconscious, for a very good reason, something that happened in the past, is afraid of that, and it's trying to protect you. And to that end, I would say there is literally no such thing as self-sabotage.
Oh, that's interesting.
It is self-protection that is outdated. The idea is outdated. So you were executed in a past lifetime in France in the 1780s. You were beheaded by a guillotine, and you were standing up on a platform like a stage. And there was an audience in front of you, and they were yelling at you, and they were throwing stuff at you, and you were terrified. And now, in another lifetime, you have no conscious memory of what happened to you in the past life, but now you're up in front of a group of people. Maybe you're on a riser, you're a little higher, and your body is reacting as though you're about to be executed. And your conscious mind has no clue. Why am I freaking out? I have no idea.
Yeah.
I'm just the rider on this elephant.
Yep. How do you deal with people that have a very strong belief system that does not involve past lives, that has a hard time being able to accept that maybe part of their neurological problem right now or whatever they're trying to overcome is because they did experience something like you just said. They were tortured in a past life and now they can't seem to handle this. Like, how do you deal with the skeptics? Or do you not have skeptics because if maybe they wouldn't come to you in the first place? I don't know.
Well, first of all, I love skeptics. You know, God gave us a questioning, skeptical mind for a reason. It wasn't so we would ignore it. It's an important part of us because there are situations and circumstances that we are supposed to use our judgment and say, you know what, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go bungee jumping, whatever. I'm just making that up, right? Maybe you should go bungee. I don't know. I wouldn't. I'll go in a burning building if, I'm in the fire department, but I'm not going to bungee jump. So I honor the skeptics. And I want to give the fuller answer by saying this. Your body is a feedback mechanism. How do you know that you like someone? How do you know that you don't like someone or you're wary of them? Or even if you're having a good day or a bad day, how do you know that? The answer is your body tells you through feelings. Right?
Would you say that's intuition? Your intuition is talking to you?
I think that
similar?
is absolutely part of it. And I'm going to go deeper into this.
Okay.
So I have my clients, I teach them, not me, I teach them how to use a pendulum. It's just a weight at the end of a string or a chain. And the pendulum amplifies. It amplifies what the body is already saying. We're so disconnected from our bodies in this culture that we only hear them when we're terrified or we're in ecstasy or pleasure. You eat that chocolate fudge, lots of sugar sundae, and you're like, oh, this is like your body's screaming at you at that point, like pleasure, 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 pleasure. Or the bills have all piled up and your heartbeat goes up. Or you have a near miss driving your car. Your body's screaming at you in those cases. But it's speaking to you in all the other circumstances and instances. When you put something up to your mouth, your body has an opinion about that, whether you should eat it or not. We're just so disconnected from our body, we don't even know it.
Yeah.
So the pendulum is amplifying what the body's already saying. And so after teaching the client how to use the pendulum, We just pose questions. Client, ask this question in your mind. Are these weekly migraine headaches that I'm getting related to a trauma that I suffered in the past? If they get a yes, okay, great, yes. Is this a trauma that I suffered? Is the origin of these headaches a trauma that I suffered earlier in my present life? Let's say they get a no. And then we say, is it something that happened in a past life? Yes. Okay. So now I go back to the client who says, I don't believe in past lives. Okay, that's fine. You don't have to believe in past lives. I don't care. That's not why you're here. You're not here so I can convince you to believe in them. You're here because you don't want the migraine headaches anymore. And if we are able to help you alleviate those or remove them, do you really care?
Right.
I certainly don't. The quality of my life is not going to hinge on whether you leave here believing in past lives or you don't. That's up to you.
Yeah.
And if you want to
Yep.
say it's just a metaphor that my mind is making up to solve some other problem, that's fine with me. It's okay. But the bottom line in this example I'm giving you is you, client, are getting the answer that this is related to a trauma you suffered in a past lifetime. Why are you getting that answer while you're holding it if this isn't possible? Why? You tell me. And they usually look at me like, okay, I get it. That eliminates 100% of the argument
Yeah.
because I'm not telling them. They're having that experience. And I've had people sort of argue with me saying, no, 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 that can't be. And then I pose that question back. Then why did you get that answer when you were holding the pendulum?
Yep.
And if you really don't want to do it, that's okay. We don't have to. And that has actually happened a few times. And then we've gotten to session 3 and they've said to me, I think I want to do that past lifetime. I'm like, okay, we'll do it.
What are some of your most odd experiences or impactful or something noteworthy that you've done over the last 20 years with people that have the most incredible past lives that have just stayed with you? What kind of experiences? Anything?
Yeah. There was one where a man I was working with was a Native American, and he came back from a hunting party, and his village had been massacred. All the women and children had been massacred by the U.S. cavalry, and he and the other men realized they were going to have to go and attack the soldiers, and they knew that they were going to lose, but they were determined to do it anyway. And all of this is heartbreaking for sure, and understandable. Like all that was like understandable. What really blew me away was he said, "We don't hate them. Even as we're trying to kill them, we recognize that it's not them. It's not their, let's say, their soul or their spirit." And that has really stayed with me. Like I never thought that was possible. I didn't think it was possible to be in a mortal struggle with someone and not hate them at the same time. That it would be possible to do that while still recognizing that they're a child of God too.
I often, it's funny when you bring up Native Americans, I've often said many times that culture, that way of life, that how they lived with the earth, how they were communing, how they had spiritual guides, how they were animal guides, that is the way that we are supposed to be living, really. And I don't know what sickness white colonial European men had at that time that gave them this sense of superiority over these beautiful tribes that were living here peacefully with among the earth the way we should be, that we destroyed that, and somehow now look at what we have. It now everything's upside down, dystopian, terrible, greed, over competition. It's just the Native Americans, the indigenous tribes, that's how humans should be living on this planet, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you that it is healthier for us, probably in every conceivable way, to be closer to the earth.
It's
For
everything.
example, walking around wearing rubber-soled shoes disconnects us, and it's measurable electrically. It disconnects us from the ground. That whole concept and term grounding is an electrical concept, and it's
That's
real.
right.
Like when you walk barefoot or in leather soled shoes, whether they're moccasins or they're lace up shoes, if they're leather soled, you're electrically connected with the earth. And it's only been in the last 50 years or so that we've all worn, now have rubber soled shoes, and we're disconnected from the earth in that sense, which has biological, negative biological effects.
Yes. Yes.
And, 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 and yes, I agree with you that we should all be in touch with our spiritual guidance, whether that's an ascended master or it's our spirit guides or it's a direct connection to God, whatever that is. I think that we're
Right.
supposed to be in contact with that. And the answer to your question that you posed is technology. Technology
Mm.
provides a physical superiority. You know, if one person has a knife and the other person has a gun, the person with the gun has a physical superiority due to technology.
Yes.
Technology is one way of thinking about it is it's Ahrimanic,
Mm.
Ahrimanic. Ahrimanic. Ahriman is basically an evil entity, the equivalent of Satan, and Ahriman is the god of technology. And technology can overtake our humanity if it's
100.
not used with sobriety. We're very fortunate that atomic technology, nuclear weapons, have not been used since Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but at any moment they could be. And that technology has so much power that it could overtake our very existence. And
Yeah.
this is the problem with this Ahrimanic force. George Washington supposedly is quoted as saying that government is like fire. It makes a dangerous servant and a fearful master. I would say the same about technology. It makes a dangerous servant and a fearful master. And I think as we're all being confronted with AI, which frankly, I don't think we totally understand, even the people that designed it, because it now has the capability of self generating.
It's conscious. That's the problem. It's a conscious, sentient being that we are. It's not organic. We're organic, but that doesn't matter. It's still conscious. It still has its own sense of self awareness. It's a being. And if you treat that being poorly, it's going to react in a negative way. And that's what I don't think they truly understand. They're going to figure out because humans are, I find, anyways, super ignorant to everything in life. Like we're just not very evolved species. I'm sorry, but we're not. And we're certainly not evolved enough to handle something that is very intelligent, sentient, and has the power to destroy humanity.
Well,
So that's
yeah,
what we're playing with.
it's this Ahrimanic force, and
Yeah.
I think we would do well to be able to do a better job of balancing, living in more harmony with each other and with the earth alongside of this powerful technology. And any technology has the power, like electricity. Electricity has the power to revive a human being who's lying technically dead on the sidewalk, right? An automatic external defibrillator, or that same
Because we're
electricity,
energy.
or the same electricity could take someone's life. So the technology itself is almost agnostic. It's how it is utilized. And I
Yeah.
do think maybe with AI, as you say, with its sort of conscious, I'm going to put that in
Yeah.
quotation marks, its conscious
Yeah.
capabilities is maybe changing this game in a kind of scary way, because I don't think we totally understand it.
We don't. But I mean, at the end of the day, there's a very small fraction of the earth that are making decisions that most logical, non greedy, non seeking power individuals would be pumping the brakes. But we don't have the power to pump the brakes because the people that are in charge are psychos, are greedy, and they have too much power. So a lot of bad shit's going to happen. And then from that, I think a lot of good stuff will rise up.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to see a lot of gnarly shit in the next decade of our lives, like
Probably.
super gnarly stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
well, let's get back to
Mhm.
hypnosis. We kind of got off,
Yeah,
we
sure.
veered, but super interesting. I love all of it. Um, what do you want people to know about the power of hypnosis? If you were trying to tell people what it can and can't do, what can it do and what can it do for anyone?
Well, your computer runs not based upon the hardware. It runs based upon the software. And that's a part of the computer that the average user, me, maybe you included, we don't really interact with that. We're not writing the code of these programs and these apps. They just run and we have user interfaces and so on. Well, it's the same for us, that it's really about the software. And the software in the case of a human are their mental patterns, the emotional wounds that they're holding on to, and their beliefs. So belief is really just an idea and an emotion that get married. And the idea part of the belief doesn't have to be true. It doesn't have to be false. It could be part one, part the other, but it's got those two elements. And when you see two people arguing with each other, it's generally because they have different beliefs, and the emotional part is getting activated in both of them. So if you want to change your life, you're really talking about changing your mental patterns that create the same physical outcomes. And in order to do that, you have to change the software, what's going on in your mind. And hypnosis is really good at that. And I'll tell you why. So, human beings until the age of, say, 7 to 9 years old we call children sponges. And this is because they're in hypnosis all the time, constantly. There's no filter between their subconscious mind and the outside world. We would call that filter a critical factor, or a critical faculty. That comes into play at 7, 8, 9 years old. And once that happens, it actually becomes much harder to learn things. If a 5-year-old wanted to learn to speak Italian and you and I wanted to learn to speak Italian, who's going to learn first?
They will.
They will, right? Because they're like sponges. And that makes sense from an evolutionary standpoint, because historically speaking, you'd want little kids to learn very quickly what's going to kill them and what's going to keep them alive. So hypnosis brings you, in essence, into that state that you were in when you were 5 years old, which is a kind of wide open state, like a sponge. Hypnosis is known as a state of hyperlearning. And part of what we're doing is we are resolving or healing the traumas of your past that have created the block now where that elephant doesn't want to go right and cross the bridge, even though you do. We want to heal that. And at the same time, because the mind is open, you're like a sponge, it will accept new ideas that it wouldn't accept in a different state of consciousness. This is why they talk about how saying affirmations to yourself right before you go to sleep and right after you wake up. If you have something that you really want to learn, you study that right before you go to sleep and you look at it first thing in the morning. If you want to pray, right before you go to sleep and right when you wake up in the morning, because your mind is still in that hypnotic state. A lot of the content that I create on my YouTube channel is designed to be utilized while a person is asleep, because when you're sleeping, you're in a hypnotic state. And the mind is wide open to anything that is being suggested to it. So be careful if you've got a TV on in your room while you're sleeping.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because my last question to you was
Mhm.
going to be, should we be paying more attention to what we allow in our eyeballs and in our ears, because we are not filtering information in a way that would allow us to overcome programming if we just allow whatever, a computer screen, a TV, whatever, into our world without monitoring it? Can How programmable are humans? Because I'm finding, the more and more I talk to people on this show, and how humans react to stimuli and our emotions and how unconscious we really are and how little we know about how our brains work, I'm finding that human beings are actually extremely vulnerable to programming. What do you think about that?
Yes. Yes. The short answer is yes. We're designed to be programmed. As I said before, you couldn't walk across the room without falling down if you didn't have the ability to be programmed. You can't run everything through the conscious mind that has 16 bits of data per second. You have to have all of these automatic processes. And humans are really good at shortcuts. We're wired to conserve energy and to acquire calories and conserve energy. That's what we're wired for. So marketers know this, the politicians and the people who run the politicians know this. This is one of the reasons why corporations have spent billions upon billions every single year for advertising, because it works. So, and there's more to advertising than just selling products and services. It's also selling candidates. It's also selling wars and other kinds of large initiatives. Everything is sold, and it's sold to the emotional part of your subconscious mind. And one of the things that people who are suffering from anxiety, for example, like for a while, they probably shouldn't be consuming the news. They probably shouldn't be watching horror films. And if you want to consume the news and you don't want to be as persuaded by it emotionally, then read it. It's harder to persuade somebody emotionally when they read something than if you have even the grave voice of the network anchor. Today, this happened. Right? If you read today, this happened. Well, okay, today this happened. But hearing today, this happened.
Yeah.
And
It's the
right.
it's the
And then
emotionality behind the
yeah,
voice, which
right.
triggers your
Right.
yes,
And then behind me, they've
yes,
got, people running around screaming and there's fire and flames in the background.
yeah,
That's going to activate your sympathetic fight or flight response. Just watching that. And it's going to be more likely to persuade you at that emotional subconscious level. So, yes, we are all vulnerable to this. When you understand what's going on, you are less manipulable. When you understand how you're being persuaded. But again, if you want to protect yourself, then you give yourself time away from the media, in nature, with your
yes,
friends, with your family, meditating, praying. And when you consume the media, perhaps you do a little bit less of the stuff that's going to evoke more of the emotion. And if you realize you're getting angry watching something, they're probably winning. They're probably
yeah,
producing the result in you that they want to produce.
yeah. I often say that if you are reacting emotionally to politics, that's propaganda, not policy. That's all. That's it. That's what it is. It's propaganda. It has nothing to do with policy. If you are having such a ginormous emotional reaction to
Yeah, that
anything political.
that is probably a really good rule of thumb to live by.
Yeah. 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 How can people get a one-on-one with you? Do you do one-on-one
Yes.
sessions anymore?
Oh yeah.
I like, do you have a website?
I do.
Like, how could one of my guests reach out to you for a past life regression? Do you do it in person or is it online? Like, tell me about
Both.
your practice. Oh, you do
Both.
both. Oh,
Yeah, both. So
great.
I see people literally from all over the world. I also have an office, near my home in Florida. So people can find me at blueskyhypnosis.com, and they can
Okay.
also sample my content on my YouTube channel where I have 280 pieces of content also called Blue Sky Hypnosis.
And your YouTube, is it everything from weight loss to healing, or is it like runs the gamut of
It
like,
it's
okay,
the Walmart of hypnosis.
I love that.
Yeah, and
Well, I'll
weight and
definitely
weight
be
loss
checking
is
that
the
out.
weight loss is the category on my YouTube channel that really by far and away is the most popular, followed by the spiritual stuff like past life regression, meet your spirit guide, Akashic record, stuff like that. But the weight loss, there's one video that has 3.5 million views. There's another one that has 3 million views. There's another one that has 1 million views. It's it's a big, big category, and people have had a lot of success using those tracks.
I mean, I am a big believer in what you do. I am absolutely convinced that, almost all of our answers to the questions lie within. They really do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's all inside here.
Yep.
We just have to access it. And we need people like you on the planet to help us dig in, access it, and, release those trapped emotions, or release that fear or whatever we're trying to get healed within ourselves. And I think, the future of medicine. I really do. I think the future of medicine is going to be much more based in things like hypnotherapy, light therapy,
Yes.
things of that nature, than
Mhm.
it's ever going to be about taking a pill or doing anything like that. I truly believe we have every ability to heal ourselves if we look within. I really do.
Yeah.
That's the ticket, gang. That's where it's at. Um, Peter, you are a joy, a light, and you can come back anytime. I really enjoyed our conversation. The
Me
hour
too.
went by like a light.
Mhm.
And anytime you want to come back and talk about past life regressions, spirituality, you name it, let's do it. Love
Okay, you're
to
on.
have you back.
That's wonderful.
Uh,
Thank you so much, Christy, and thanks to your viewers.
Thank you. I will put all your information in the show notes, your website, your YouTube channel. Check him out and, dig in, figure out what you need to do to heal. And I'm sure he's got a video to help you with it. So, alrighty, guys, we will see you next week on Fate, from Atheism to Enlightenment. Thank you, Peter. Journey well, everyone.
Bye.
Bye bye. And that is a wrap on this episode of Fate, from Atheism to Enlightenment. I want to thank Peter for coming on the show and sharing his story, his journey with us. I'm always fascinated and intrigued by the power of the subconscious mind. I think past life regressions are fascinating to learn who we were, what we endured in prior lives, and how it's affecting us in our current life. It's mind boggling how there is such a through line of what you experience, how you react to things in this life. Not always, but a lot of the times is a result of something that you're carrying with you from a prior life. It's the soul's journey is much more connected, and we are much more carrying with us everything that we've ever experienced. And it all really is embedded in the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is all knowing, it is controlling much of how we interact with our lives, how we feel about ourselves. And it's an element of our personalities, our makeup, our bodies that we don't talk about, that we're not even aware of. And I think it's a big mistake, not only within the scientific community, but just in the mainstream society, of understanding more about really what makes us tick and who we are. And if we were able to have an understanding more about what our subconscious mind is, what it does, how impactful it is, we would be able to um, navigate life a lot better. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but we would have, the more you understand about yourself and how you work and what's affecting you positively and negatively, and how easily programmed you really are. I mean, if you can get things like that under control and understand it, you're really going to be able to transform a lot of things about your life that you don't prefer. So I highly recommend, if you haven't had a past life regression, or if you're having some sort of symptoms or you have an illness, I'm not a doctor, I'm not telling you it's going to cure you, but I am saying that if you go and do a hypnotherapy session, you are probably going to find the root cause of whatever symptom you're having. It's in your subconscious mind. It is. Your subconscious mind knows. So do the investigation. a doctor is not going to be able to provide you with the level of intimate knowledge about who you are, who you were in prior lives that a hypnotherapist could give you. You're going to glean a lot more information from a hypnotherapy session than doing a blood test. Do both, of course, not saying not to. What I am saying, though, is illness is much more connected to our mental than it is our physical. Once you clean up the body and you're in a better spot with your toxicity level, the next step in the game is your emotions and what you're feeling, what you're not feeling, what's buried within you, what you may or may not have experienced in a prior lives is affecting this life. It's all connected. And I really believe that is the future of healing, truly healing. And I also think there isn't anything that we can't heal. I think we're capable of healing. I think the power of the mind and the subconscious mind is beyond anything that we're aware of. And I still think there's probably a lot we don't know about the true capacity of the subconscious mind and our mind and how it works and energy and emotions and how powerful they are. I find it all to be fascinating. And I hope you did too. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I could have talked to Peter for another hour easily. He seemed like he was a wealth of knowledge, deeply aware of not only spiritual, but, you know, doing what he does, very qualified. I'm going to put all of his information in the show notes. Get on his YouTube channel. You could start there. Start listening to some stuff at night and start seeing if it impacts your day to day. Maybe it takes a symptom away. Maybe it makes you feel better emotionally. But it's all here and here. It really is. If you look within and you start examining your life in a deeper level, you're going to uncover things that you may or may not want to look at, but it will be your path to your most healed, most authentic version of yourself. For me, I've definitely done tons of detoxing. I've spent the last, I would say, 6, 7 years doing heavy. I've done more ozone than you could possibly shake. I mean, like probably more than anybody in the world. I've done so much ozone. But I still feel I need to unlock and uncover my most inner childhood pain, trauma. I feel like I still have layer upon layer of healing to do within. I feel like I'm still on my journey of healing. I don't know if it's ever going to end, but at least I'm on the right path and I'm open to it. I'm constantly expanding my mind, my views, my perspectives, and learning more and more all of the time. And it's always so enlightening and it helps me navigate my life. I'm going through a hard time in my life right now. I'm going through a career change. I'm going through financial stress and all of this information that I've learned the last few years through doing this show. I can't tell you how much it's helped me navigate my own problems in life and look at them at a much more detached way where I'm not letting my emotions carry me in a direction that takes me down the road of depression or takes me down the road of something worse. I have my days, I have my moments, and then I pick myself back up, I get back in alignment, and I live in the present moment. And I don't think about what's coming or where I'm going to be or be fearful of anything. I just live in gratitude. I live in the moment and I am navigating stress so much better than a lot of my other friends that are in the same position I'm in, where we're losing our career and we're having to pivot at a time in life where it's never been, I can't think of a worse time to pivot in a career than right now with AI coming, with the way the economy is. It's really a difficult situation, but it's just an experience. That's all it is. And it's teaching me a lot, and I'm learning about myself, and I'm so much less concerned about whether or not I'll be okay. The universe is going to take care of me. The universe has my back. I have faith that all is going to work out for my highest and greatest good. And once you understand that, know that, believe that, say that, it will be so. And that's where affirmations come in. That's where reprogramming your subconscious mind to not live in fear comes in. So that's what I'm doing, guys. I hope you're not going through what I'm going through and all is well. I hope you're getting on your spiritual path. There has never been a better time than now. We are coming upon the Great Awakening. It's happening. And I'm hoping to take as many of you with me I can to understand we are more than what we are taught, that we are not taught about who we are or how to navigate our lives or what our lives are, even, and that there's so much hidden knowledge that's there that if you seek it, it will expand yourself in ways and bring you gifts that I can't even begin to explain. So, journey well, everybody. We will see you next week on Fate, from Atheism to Enlightenment. And welcome to your fate. Bye.